Welcome back to Basic Statistics. So our lesson 2 will be all about the collection, organization, and presentation of data. So at the end of this lesson, you should be able to learn some important points in collecting data. Learn the different methods of data collection, organize and display data into a frequency distribution, and present ways to portray quantitative and qualitative data variables graphically. So now, what is collection of data? Collecting data is a method of gathering data for a specific purpose. So we have methods of data collection. So the first one is a direct or interview method. The direct or interview method of data collection uses at least two persons, an interviewer and interviewees, exchanging information. This method will give us precise and consistent information because clarifications can be made. Also, questions not fully understood by the respondent, the interviewer could repeat the question until it suits the interviewee's level. However, this method is time-consuming, expensive, and has limited field coverage. So let's proceed to the second one, which is the indirect or questionnaire method. This is a method where written answers are given to prepared questions. This method requires less time and is inexpensive since the questionnaires can simply be mailed or hand-carried. Also, this will give a respondent a sense of freedom and honesty in answering the questions because of anonymity. Online procedure through various social media is now a common way of administering questionnaires. Let's proceed to the third one, which is the registration method. This is a method enforced by certain laws, civil codes, and regulations of each country. It is a process which imposes registration of vital events such as births, marriage, and deaths. The fourth one is the observation method. This is a method which involves personal observation of the behavior of individuals or organizations in the study. This is also used when the respondents cannot read nor write, wherein interview or observation method is not possible. So the last one is the experiment method. This method is used when the objective of the study is to determine the cause and effect of certain phenomena or event. It should be made clear that causality can only be established with the use of experimental method. Under this method, randomly chosen subjects are randomly assigned to a particular treatment under a particular experimental design adopted by the researcher. Okay class, let's have a short recap. Now, what are the 5 methods of data collection? So we have the direct or interview method, the indirect or questionnaire method, the registration method, the observation method, and the experiment method. Now let's proceed on the frequency distributions. A frequency distribution is a table which summarizes or arranges data into various classes or categories. When the data are organized in this form, analysis of data and interpretation can easily be managed. So we have parts of frequency distribution table. So the first one is the table heading. It includes the table number and the title of the table. The second is the body. It is the main part that contains the information or figures. The third one is the stubs or classes. It is the classification or categories describing the data and usually found at the leftmost side of the table. The last one is the caption, designations or identifications of the information contained in the column, usually found at the topmost of the column. Take note, in the quantitative frequency distribution table, the classes are class intervals which are composed of the lower limit and the upper limit. Let's move on the types of frequency distribution table or the FDT. The first one is the qualitative or categorical frequency distribution table. It is a frequency distribution table where the data are grouped according to some characteristics. Data are grouped into non-numerical categories. So here is the example. So we have the gender of respondents and the frequency. We have male, which is 65, and the female, which is 98, and their total is 168. The next one is the quantitative frequency distribution table. A frequency distribution table where the data are grouped according to some numerical or quantitative characteristics. So here is an example. So we have the weight in kilogram and frequency. So we have the interval 7 to 9, 10 to 12, 13 to 15, 16 to 18, 19 to 21, and the frequency of the people who weigh 7 to 9 is 2, 10 to 12 is 8, 13 to 15 is 14, 16 to 18 is 19, 19 to 21 is 7, and so the total is 50. Now, let's move on the steps in constructing a frequency distribution table. So the first one is to determine the range. Now, what is range? So range is the highest value minus the lowest value. Number 2 is to determine the number of classes or K. So we have the formula for K, which is K is equal to square root of N, where N is the total number of observations in the data set. The third one is to determine the class size, C prime, by calculating the first preliminary class size. So we have the C prime is equal to range divided by the classes. A. It should have the same number of decimal places as in the raw data. Letter B. The class size of an interval is the difference between the upper class boundary and the lower class boundary of that interval. Number 4 is to enumerate the classes or categories. So note, we usually make the lowest value as the lowest lower limit. Number 5 is to tally the observations. Number 6 is to compute for values in other columns of the frequency distribution table as deemed necessarily. Take note, sometimes the number of classes is not followed. An extra class will be added to accommodate the highest observed value in the dataset, and the class will be deleted if it turns out to be empty. What are the other columns in the frequency distribution table? So we have the first one, the class boundaries or the CB. We have the lower class boundary or the LCB. So LCB is equal to lower limit minus 0.5 unit of measure, while the upper class boundary, the UCB, is equal to lower limit plus 0.5 unit of measure. The next one is the class mark or CM. It is the midpoint of the class interval where the observations tend to cluster about. So we have class mark is equal to lower limit plus upper limit divided by 2. Next one is the cumulative frequency distribution. This indicates the number of scores that fall below and above the class limits of class intervals. So we have two kinds of cumulative frequency distribution table. So we have less than cumulative frequency. It is the total number of observations whose values do not exceed the upper limit of the class. Second one is the greater than cumulative frequency. It is the total number of observations whose values are less than the lower limit of the class. So let's have the illustrative example. The following are the weights of 30 employees of the sales department of a shopping mall. So we have 117, 205, 159, 215, 160, 201, 211, 140, 115, 123, 178, 186, 134, 197, 129, 128, 116, 108, 183, 145, 180, 212, 210, 142, 153, 168, 137, 182, 204, and 193. So the first step is we are going to get the range. So range is equal to HB minus LB. Now class, what is the highest value in the given data? Okay, very good. The highest value is 212. How about the lowest value? Okay, it is 108. So let's subtract them together. So we have 212 minus 108. Now, bring out your calculator and input 212 minus 108. Now, guys, what is the answer? Okay, range is equal to 104. Now, let's proceed to step 2 wherein we are going to get the number of classes. So we have number of classes, k is equal to square root of n. Now class, what is the number of the data given? Okay, very good, 30. Now we have k is equal to the square root of 30. Try to input it in your calculator. What will be the answer? Okay, very good. This is 5.47. Or round it off, it will become 5. Step 3 is to get the class size. So the formula for class size is C prime is equal to range divided by the number of classes. So what is our range? We have 104. How about the number of classes? We have 5. So we have 104 divided by 5 is equal to 20.8. Round it off, it will become 21. Now we are going to construct a frequency distribution table. So we have here the intervals. The intervals will be 21. Now the lowest value is 108. Now from 108 you count 21, so it become 128. Then next 129 to 149. Then next 150 to 170, 171 to 191, 192 to 212, 213 to 233. The next step is we are going to tally the data. So here is the tally of the data. So for interval 108 to 128, we have 6. On 129 to 149, we also have 6. 150 to 170, we have 4. 171 to 191, we have 5. 192 to 212, we have 8. 213 to 233, we have 1. Now we are just going to count the tally. Then we will write it at F, which represents the frequency. So we have 6, 6, 4, 5, 8, 1. Now let's proceed to LCB, or the lower class boundary. So in getting the lower class boundary, we will just subtract 0.5 from the lower class boundary, which is 108, 129, 150, 171, 192, and 213. So we get 107.5. 129 minus 0.5 is 128.5. 150 minus 0.5 is 149.5. Then 171 minus 0.5 is 170.5. 192 minus 0.5 is 191.5. 213 minus 200 minus 0.5 is equal to 212.5. Now let's proceed to the upper class boundary. For the upper class boundary, we are going to add So proceed tayo ngayon in the frequency distribution table. So ang na-compute natin na class size is 21. So, ngayon, para mag-construct ng interval, hanapin natin yung pinaka-lowest value and the data. So, ang lowest value doon is yung 108. Now, tapos ngayon, mag-start ka sa 108, magka-count ka lang ng 21. So, we have 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, then na-reach natin yung 128. Ngayon, ang susunod sa 128 is 129. Magbibilang ka lang ulit ng 21 from 129. So, yung endpoint will be 149. Tapos, yung susunod is 150. Magbilang ka lang ulit 21 from 150. Then, it will become to 170. Tapos, next ulit doon is 171. Magbibilang ka lang ulit ng 21 from 171. Then, ma-reach mo yung 191. Ganun na siya, and so on. Ngayon, next is yung pagtatali. So, dun sa data natin, magtatali tayo. Ngayon, meron tayong tinali ko na. So, itry nyo on your own. So, I have here the tally. So, for the interval 108 to 128, we have 6. 129 to 149, we also have 6. 150 to 170, we also have 4. 171 to 191, we got 5. 192 to 212, we have 8. 213 to 233, we have 1. Ngayon, pupunta tayo dito sa may F, which is the frequency. Ang gagawin lang natin dito sa F is ito total po natin itong tally. So, ito, we have 6. Ito, we have 6 also. And here, we also have 4. Here, we have 5. Here, we have 8. Then, lastly, we have 1. Naintindihan po? So, proceed tayo dun sa lower class boundary. So, para po makuha yung lower class boundary, so, susubtract lang tayo ng 0.5 dito sa may ito. Ito yung lower limit natin. So, susubtract lang tayo ng 0.5 dito. So, we have 108. So, minus 0.5, we got 107.5. So, next, 129 minus 0.5, we got 128.5. Then, 150 minus 0.5, meron tayong 149.5. 171, subtract ulit tayo ng 0.5, makukuha natin si 170.5. ganun ulit sa susunod. Subtract lang tayo ng 0.5. We got 191.5. Then 213, subtract ulit tayo. So we have 212.5. Sunod naman is si UCB, si upper class boundary. Now, nasan yung upper class boundary natin? So, ito po siya. So, ang gagawin lang natin is mag-a-add naman po tayo ng 0.5 dito sa may upper limit. So, we have 128. Dagdagan mo ng 0.5. We have 128.5. Si 149, dagdagan mo ulit ng 0.5, magiging 149.5. 170, ganun ulit, magiging 170.5. 191, magiging 191.5. 212, magiging 212.5. 233, magiging 233.5. Ngayon, dito po sa susunod, is ilabas po natin ang ating mga calculator. So, para po makuha natin si class mark, ang formula po natin is si lower limit plus the upper limit, i-divide po natin siya ng 2. So, paki-input sa calculator, 108 plus 128. Ano po ang ating nakuhang sagot? We have 236. Then, i-divide lang po natin siya ng 2. So, ang magiging sagot is 118. Ganun lang din po yung gagawin dun sa next. So, 129 plus 149, ang sagot is 278. Di-divide mo lang siya ng 2. Di-divide mo lang siya ng 2. Ang makukuha mong sagot is 139. Sunod naman natin si 150 plus 170. So, ang sagot po is 320. Pag dinivide mo ng 2, ito ang makukuha ang sagot, 160. Ganun din, si 171. I-add mo siya ng 191, magiging 362. I-divide mo po siya ng 2, kaya po nakuha si 181. Sunod naman po si 192 plus 212. Ang equals nito is 404. I-divide mo lang siya ng 2. Makukuha mo na yung sagot na 202. Lastly, si 213. I-add mo lang si 233. Yan, ang sagot is 446. When you divide it by 2, we got the answer 223. Naintindihan po ba? Ngayon, mag-proceed naman tayo dito sa may less than CF or yung less than cumulative frequency. Para makuha yung less than cumulative frequency, hanapin po natin yung lowest interval. So, ito siya. Ngayon po, si lowest interval, ilan yung frequency niya? So, meron siyang 6. Si 6 po, kukopyahin mo lang siya doon, lalagay mo. So, 6. Tapos, itong si 6, i-plus mo siya kay 6, kaya nakuha si 12. Ngayon, si 12 ulit, i-plus mo siya dun sa susunod na frequency, kaya nakuha si 16. Tapos, si 16 naman, i-add mo ulit sa 5, kaya nakuha si 21. Tapos, si 21, nag-add ka ng 8, kaya nakuha si 29. Tapos, si 29 plus 1, kaya po nakuha si 30. Ngayon, para naman sa greater than CF, hanapin mo naman yung pinakamataas na interval, which is this one. Now, ano yung frequency nito? So, meron tayong 1. Kopyahin mo lang si 1, lagay mo siya dito. So, 1, tapos plus ito, si 8. Kaya, naging 9. Tapos, si 9 ulit, plus 5. Kaya, naging 14. Tapos, si 14, mag-add ka nitong 4. Kaya, naging 18. Tapos, si 18, mag-add ka ng 6. Kaya nakuha si 24. Tapos si 24, mag-add ka ng 6, kaya nakuha si 30. I hope you have understand the steps on constructing a frequency distribution table.
Next is the graphical presentations of frequency distributions. So we have the graph. It is a visual display of frequency distributions to show the important features of data and the relationships of the numerical values in pictorial form. So we have the graphing quantitative variables. So first one is the histogram. The classes are plotted on the horizontal axis and the frequencies on the vertical axis. So we have here the example, the frequency distribution of drivers. So here in the vertical axis, we have the percentage of drivers, and on the horizontal axis, we have the miles driven one way. Next is the frequency polygon. It consists of line segments connecting the points formed by the intersections of class midpoints and the class frequencies.
So here is the example of the frequency polygon. As you can see, it is about the test scores of students, and on the vertical axis we have the frequency, on the horizontal we have the scores. Now the figure shows that the frequency of the students who got high scores is lesser than the students who got low score. Let's proceed to the next one, which is ogive. It is a graph where a point is plotted above each class boundary at a height equal to the cumulative frequency corresponding to that boundary. So here is an example. Figure 6 shows the less than and greater than ogives of the entrance examination scores of 60 students. Next one is the stem and leaf plots. So it gives a quick picture of the shape of a distribution while including the actual numerical values in graph. So this is how a stem leaf graph looks like. So we have 56, 67, 67, 69, 72, 74, 77, 77, 78, 81, 82, 82, 83, 84, 88, 90, 92, 93, 94. So we also have graphing qualitative variables. So used in qualitative variables. So we have column and bar graph. It consists of bars or heavy lines of equal widths, either all vertical or horizontal. So here is an example of vertical bar graph. So it says there that fruit sales. So on the vertical axis we have the sales. Then the horizontal axis shows the different types of fruits. So we have apples, bananas, grapes, oranges, and pears. The last one is the pie chart. It is a circular graph that is useful in showing how a total quantity is distributed among a group of categories. So here is an example of pie graph. We have here the favorite type of movie. So for the sci-fiction, we have 20%, drama we have 5%, romance 30%, action is 25%, and comedy is 20%. So that's all for our lesson. So thank you for watching. Hope you have enjoyed and learned a lot. So see you on our next lesson. Goodbye.